My daughter left me with 9 children. 12 years later, she came back with the police and called me a kidnapper. When I saw my daughter step out of that shiny gold car, I almost didn't recognize her. It had been 12 long years since I last saw Vanessa. But a mother's heart, it never forgets her child. Not the face, not the walk, not the eyes. She stood at my gate like a stranger. 2 policemen flanked her, tall, stern, and serious. And all my grandchildren, my babies, stood behind me on the porch, watching. 9 of them, each one trembling, whispering, "Grandma, what's happening?" I tried to smile through my confusion. "Vanessa?" I called out, my voice cracking. "Baby, is that really you?" She didn't smile back. She didn't run to hug me. She didn't even look me in the eyes. She just crossed her arms and said, "Ma'am, these are my children. You've kept them here long enough." At first, I thought she was joking, one of those cruel jokes people make when they've been gone too long. But when the police officer pulled out a folded paper and said, "Ma'am, we have a report of child abduction. You'll need to come with us for questioning," my knees almost gave way. "Abduction?" I whispered. What are you saying?" The taller officer frowned. "Ma'am, the woman says you've had her children for over a decade without her consent." I looked at her then, really looked. The daughter I once knew had been replaced by someone colder. Her clothes were expensive, her makeup flawless, her nails long and polished like she hadn't washed a single dish in years. But her eyes, Lord, her eyes, were empty. I tried to laugh, but it came out like a sob. "Vanessa," I said, "you left these babies with me. You said you needed time. You said." She cut me off. "I said I'd be back in 2 weeks, Mama. 2 weeks. You took them from me and turned them against me." The children gasped. The oldest, Maya, stepped forward. "Mom," she said softly, her voice shaking. "You told us Grandma said you didn't want us." For a second, something flickered in Vanessa's eyes, guilt maybe, but it disappeared just as fast. She raised her chin higher. "I don't have to explain myself to anyone," she said. "I'm here to take back what's mine." I remember reaching out my hand, not to stop her, but to touch her, to feel that she was real, to hold the daughter I had prayed for every single night since she left. But she stepped back like my touch would burn her, and that hurt more than any insult ever could. "Officer," she said, turning away from me, "please do your job." The younger policeman hesitated. He looked at me, at the house, at the children, their school bags on the porch, the laundry hanging on the line, the smell of stew still in the air. He could see this wasn't a house of crime. This was a home, built with sweat, faith, and love. "Ma'am," he said gently, "can you come with us to the station? Just to clear this up?" I looked around, at my neighbors peeking from behind their curtains, at the children clutching my skirt, tears rolling down their faces. And something inside me broke. Not because of the shame, but because I realized that in her heart, my daughter had truly erased the 12 years I spent keeping her children alive. I whispered, "Lord, give me strength," and nodded. "All right, officer," I said. "But please, let me tell them something before I go." He nodded. I knelt down and pulled the youngest, little Rose, into my arms. Her face was wet with tears. "Grandma, are they taking you away?" she asked. I smiled, or tried to. "No, baby," I said softly. "They're just taking me to ask questions. You be strong, okay? Grandma's not going anywhere for long." The others huddled close, 9 pairs of tiny hands gripping my clothes like they could hold me down with love. Each face I had fed, bathed, prayed for. Each one I had carried through sickness and hunger. Each one I had raised when their mother forgot they even existed. I looked up at Vanessa one last time. "You'll always be my daughter," I said quietly. "But one day, you'll understand what love really means." She didn't answer. She just turned away, walked back to that car, and closed the door. The engine started, the dust rose, and the policeman led me away. I didn't cry. Not yet. Because when you've been both mother and grandmother, pain becomes something you learn to carry, like an old scar that still aches when it rains. That night, I sat in the police station, hands folded in my lap, staring at the wall. They called it kidnapping, but I called it raising my family. And as I waited there, I told myself one thing: whatever happens next, I won't be ashamed. Because I know what I did, and I know who I did it for. My name is Evelyn Johnson, and this is the story I never thought I'd tell. A story about love that was tested, faith that was mocked, and forgiveness that came dressed in tears. If you're a mother, a grandmother, or just someone who's ever been broken by the ones you love, then sit with me for a while. Because by the end of the story, you'll understand that sometimes the people who hurt us most are the very ones God uses to teach us grace. Before I start, besties, if you believe no sacrifice a mother makes should ever be forgotten, go ahead and tap that like button. Leave a heart in the comments if you've ever raised someone else's child like your own. And make sure you subscribe, because here, we share stories that heal, stories that remind you you're not alone, and stories that prove love always finds a way back home. They say when your child cries for help, you run to them, no matter what they've done, no matter how far they've fallen. But sometimes, that cry don't come as words. Sometimes, it comes as silence and 9 little faces looking up at you, waiting for answers you don't have. 12 years before that day at the station, it was a cold, windy night. I remember because the moon was bright, too bright for a night that sad. Vanessa came to my door with tears running down her face, holding the youngest in her arms and dragging 2 old suitcases behind her. The children, all 9 of them, looked lost, tired, and hungry. "Ma," she said, voice trembling, "I just need a place to rest for a while. Just 2 weeks. I'll come back for them when I get back on my feet." I didn't ask questions. I saw the fear in her eyes, and I knew she'd been running. From what I didn't know, not yet. I just opened my door wide and said, "You and the babies come in." That night, I cooked what little I had, some rice, beans, and stew from the day before. I watched the children eat like they hadn't seen food in days. The littlest one, Rose, couldn't even hold her spoon. She just sat there, staring, too tired to cry. Vanessa sat at the table, silent, her head bowed. When I reached for her hand, she pulled it away. That's when I noticed the bruises, faint, but real, running down her arm. "Who did this to you?" I asked quietly. She shook her head. "Don't start, Mama. I just need some time. That's all." I wanted to tell her. She didn't owe me pride. She owed those children peace. But I held my tongue. I'd learned long ago that when your child is drowning, sometimes words can push them deeper. So I let her rest. The next morning, she left early. She kissed each child on the forehead, whispered something I couldn't hear, and promised she'd return in 2 weeks. But 2 weeks turned into 12 years. The first few months were the hardest. 9 children, all different fathers, all different needs. One cried all night, one refused to eat, another was sickly from birth. My pension barely covered food for one person, let alone 10. But somehow, God stretched it. We sold old clothes, I took laundry from neighbors, I braided hair on weekends. When I was too tired to stand, I prayed sitting down. When the children asked why their mother hadn't come, I said, "She's working hard to make life better for you." Because I refused to let bitterness be their bedtime story. The years passed slow but steady. Maya, the oldest, learned to cook at 9. Caleb started shining shoes after school to help buy bread. Little Rose called me Mama before she ever said Grandma. I should have corrected her, but I couldn't. I'd become both. Every year on Vanessa's birthday, we lit a candle. I told the children to pray for her, that wherever she was, God would keep her safe. Even when I didn't believe it myself, I said it for them. Then one afternoon, I got a letter. No return address. Just a few words in her handwriting. "Don't call me. Don't look for me. I'll come when I'm ready." That letter broke me. Not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't. "No, I love you. No, tell my kids I'm sorry." Just cold ink from a cold heart that I barely recognized anymore. Still, I kept going. I told myself, maybe she was building something somewhere, a new life, a new dream. Maybe one day she'd walk through that gate again, crying, saying, "Mama, thank you." But she never came. Not when Caleb was hospitalized with pneumonia. Not when Maya graduated top of her class. Not even when little Rose turned 10 and asked me, "Did my mama forget my birthday again?" I used to sit by the window some nights, watching the road, praying. I'd say, "Lord, if you can't bring her home, at least make her remember who she left behind." But heaven stayed silent. Then, about 8 years in, I started hearing whispers in town that Vanessa was living big in the city. Fancy clothes. New car. Different name. They said she was dating some politician. At first, I didn't believe it. But then I saw her on TV, standing beside a man giving out food to orphans. Smiling. Wearing the same locket she had when she left. And I thought to myself, so, she can feed strangers but not her own? Still, I kept quiet. Because I knew what gossip does, it kills faith. And I couldn't afford to lose mine. There were nights I'd wake up sweating from dreams of her knocking on my door again. And every time I'd open that door in my dream, she'd be there, crying, begging for forgiveness. But when I woke up, all I had was silence and the sound of rain on the roof. Then came that call 12 years later. I was washing clothes in the backyard when Maya ran out with the phone. "Grandma," she said. "It's her. It's Mom." I froze. After so many years, her voice was like hearing a ghost. Soft, sharp, cold. She didn't ask how we were. Didn't ask how the kids were doing. She just said, "Ma, I'm coming home. I need to see the children." I didn't know then that she wasn't coming to see them. She was coming to claim them. Not out of love, but out of pride. Looking back now, I realize Vanessa wasn't always this way. When she was young, she used to sit beside me during church and whisper, "Mama, I'm gonna make you proud one day." She was smart, beautiful, full of fire. But somewhere along the line, the world took that fire and burned her with it. Every man she met promised her something: love, wealth, escape. And each one took a piece of her until there was nothing left but survival. She thought she was winning when she was just bleeding slower. And when she finally found a way to rebuild her image, she couldn't stand the reminder of who she used to be, the broken woman who left 9 hungry children on her mother's porch. So she did what guilt always does. She turned the truth into an accusation. She called her own mother a kidnapper. That night in the station, when they asked me to tell my side of the story, I just smiled. Because there was no way to explain 12 years of love in a few sentences. No way to tell them what it's like to watch your grandchild call you mama and know you earned it, not by blood, but by sleepless nights. They wanted to hear facts. I could only give them feelings. So I said, I didn't steal nobody's children. I just refused to let them be lost. And that's the truth that raised those 9 babies. Not anger, not revenge, just love. Tired, quiet love that never left, even when she did. The morning after that police visit, my house was no longer the quiet home it used to be. It felt like the whole world had shifted. The neighbors whispered, the children cried, and I sat in the same chair by the window, staring at the empty road where my daughter's car had driven off. By evening, a man came to my door, a lawyer. He handed me a paper, all printed and official-looking. "Mrs. Evelyn Johnson," he said, "you are being summoned to appear in court next week for unlawful custody of 9 minors." For a moment, I didn't even breathe. Unlawful custody. That's what they called 12 years of love. 12 years of patching torn shoes, paying school fees, cooking beans and rice, praying through fever and hunger. All of it reduced to 2 cold words: unlawful custody. The children surrounded me, scared and silent. Maya, the eldest, took the letter from my hand and read it aloud. When she got to her mother's name at the bottom, her voice broke. "She's really doing this, Grandma," she whispered. "She's really calling you a criminal." I wanted to comfort her, but I didn't know how. How do you explain to a child that sometimes the people who give you life can also bring you pain? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the sound of the old ceiling fan and my own heartbeat. Every memory came back. Her first cry, her first steps, the way she used to braid my hair when I was tired. And I kept asking myself, Where did I go wrong? The day of the hearing, the courthouse was packed. People love a scandal, especially one that smells like shame. They whispered as I walked in, their eyes heavy with judgment and curiosity. Some shook their heads with pity. Others smirked, eager to see a spectacle. Vanessa sat on the other side of the room, dressed in white from head to toe, clean, perfect, glowing. Next to her was that same lawyer and two men I'd never seen before. One looked like a businessman, the other a politician. Both had that look, the look of men who think money makes them gods. When I saw her eyes meet mine, I smiled gently. She didn't smile back. She turned away, adjusting her pearl earrings, pretending not to know the woman who raised her children. The judge called the case, and the air grew heavy. Her lawyer stood first. "Your Honor," he began, "my client, Mrs. Vanessa Williams, is here to reclaim custody of her biological children. For over a decade, they've been unlawfully held by her mother, who refused all attempts at contact." I could feel my blood rise. Unlawfully held? What attempts at contact? The only letter she ever sent said don't look for me. But I stayed quiet, because sometimes silence speaks louder than defense. Then it was my turn. They asked me to stand. My legs trembled, but I stood tall. The judge, a gray-haired woman with kind eyes, looked at me with a mix of pity and curiosity. "Mrs. Johnson," she said, "what do you have to say to these allegations?" I took a deep breath. "Your Honor," I said softly, "I didn't steal my daughter's children. She left them. She brought them to my doorstep 12 years ago and said she'd be back in 2 weeks. She never came. I raised them, fed them, clothed them, loved them. Not because I wanted to be their mother, but because somebody had to be." The room went quiet. Even the judge stopped writing for a moment. Then Vanessa stood up suddenly. "That's a lie," she shouted, her voice sharp as glass. "You kept them from me. You told them I didn't love them. You poisoned them against me." The children gasped. Rose started crying, and little Daniel held her hand. I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice steady. "I never said a bad word about you, Vanessa. I told them you were working hard, that you'd come back when you could. But when you didn't, I did what mothers do, I stayed." She slammed her hand on the table. "You don't understand. You ruined my life. Do you know what people said about me all those years? They called me a careless woman, a bad mother, because of you." That's when I realized. This wasn't about the children. It was about her pride. She didn't want them back out of love. She wanted to erase the part of her story that made her look weak. After the shouting, the judge called for calm. Then she turned to the children. "Maya," she said gently, "you're the eldest. Do you have anything to say?" Maya stood slowly. She was only 16, but her voice carried the weight of a woman twice her age. She looked at her mother and said, "Mom, we waited for you. Every year, every birthday, every Christmas. We waited, but you never came. Grandma didn't steal us. She saved us." You could have heard a pin drop. Vanessa froze, her lips trembling, but she didn't respond. Her lawyer tried to interrupt, but the judge silenced him with a wave. Then little Rose spoke up too, from where she sat on my lap. "Mommy, I don't remember you. I only remember Grandma." Those words cut through the room like a blade. Even I had to hold back tears. Because love like that, pure, innocent, it's not meant to be caught in the middle of grown people's pride. After the hearing, the court ordered a full investigation, social workers, home visits, school records, everything. For 2 months, my life was turned upside down. They came to my home, looked through drawers, questioned the neighbors, checked the children's school files. Some of them treated me with kindness. Others looked at me like I was something dirty. Every night, I'd kneel and pray, "Lord, you know my truth. Let it speak louder than their lies." During that time, Vanessa stopped by the house once. Not to talk, but to take pictures. She brought a photographer, made the children pose like it was some family reunion. She wanted proof for the media, to show she was reuniting with her long-lost kids. When she tried to hug them, most turned away. And that's when her mask cracked. I saw the guilt hiding behind her anger. but she still wouldn't say a word to me. A few weeks later, one of the social workers, a kind young woman named Denise, pulled me aside. She said, "Mrs. Johnson, we've reviewed everything. The children are healthy in school and deeply bonded to you. We'll make our final report soon, but between us, I can already tell who the real mother here is." I smiled and said, "Child, I'm just doing what a mother should do, even when she shouldn't have to." Denise hugged me before she left. And for the first time in months, I felt like maybe God was still watching. The day the court's decision finally came, the children and I held hands in a circle and prayed. I told them, "No matter what happens today, we stand together. If they take you, remember that Grandma loves you more than her own breath." When we entered the courtroom, Vanessa sat there looking nervous. Her hair was perfect, her nails polished, but her eyes darted everywhere. The judge read slowly from the papers, and every second felt like an hour. Finally, she looked up and said, "After careful review, the court finds no evidence of abduction. Custody of the minors will remain with Mrs. Evelyn Johnson until further evaluation. Mrs. Williams is granted visitation rights under supervision." The room went quiet. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." The children burst into tears, not of fear this time, but relief. Vanessa sat still. Her face hardened, but her hands trembled. For a moment, I thought she might speak, maybe apologize, maybe reach out. But she just gathered her things and walked out. That was the day I learned something. Love doesn't always win the way you want it to. Sometimes, it just survives. That night, when we got home, I sat on the porch while the kids played in the yard. The stars were bright, and the air smelled like rain. Maya came and sat beside me. "Grandma," she said softly, "do you hate her?" I shook my head. "No, baby. I don't hate her. You can't hate someone you pray for every night." She leaned on my shoulder and whispered, "I wish she knew how much we still love her." And I said, "One day she will." But love takes time, and truth takes even longer. A month after the court ruling, peace began to return, or so I thought. The children went back to school, laughter filled the yard again, and I started cooking with joy instead of worry. But in my spirit, I knew it wasn't over. You can't lie about love and expect God to stay quiet forever. Truth always finds a door, even if it has to break a window to come in. One evening, I was sweeping the porch when a black SUV stopped in front of the house. At first, I thought it was another social worker. But when the man stepped out, my heart skipped. He looked familiar, tall, dark suit, tired eyes. It took a moment before I realized who he was. It was Henry, one of Vanessa's old lovers, the third one, the man she once swore would make her rich. I hadn't seen him since she left that last time, 12 long years ago. He took off his hat as he approached. "Good evening, Mrs. Johnson," he said softly. "I hope you remember me." "I remember every man who made my daughter cry," I replied, not unkindly. He sighed, shame in his eyes. "I came because I think I owe you the truth." He sat on the old wooden bench beside me, looking like a man carrying a heavy confession. "She told you she was coming back, didn't she?" he asked. I nodded slowly. He rubbed his face and said, "She wasn't planning to." My stomach turned. "What do you mean?" He looked at the ground. "Back then, Vanessa got mixed up with a politician, the same one she's with now. He promised her a new life, a name, and a future. But he told her the only way he could take her seriously was if she got rid of the children. He said they'd ruin his image." My broom fell from my hand. "She came to me," he continued, voice trembling. "She begged me to take 2 of the boys off her hands. Said she'd find a way for the others later. I refused. I told her those kids were innocent. She cried, said she didn't have a choice. Next thing I knew, she disappeared, said she was going to start over. When I saw her face on TV years later, I understood what she meant." He looked at me then, his eyes glistening. "I should have told you sooner, ma'am. But I was ashamed. I thought it wasn't my place." I couldn't speak. All the pieces started falling into place. The letter, the silence, the anger in her voice that day in court. She hadn't come back to make peace. She came back to protect her reputation. That politician, her new husband, had built his life on lies, and she couldn't let anyone know she'd once been the mother who left 9 children behind. Henry stood up, slipped an envelope into my hand. Inside were old pictures, Vanessa, smiling beside him, holding 2 of the children as babies. He pointed to the back of one photo, where she had written in her handwriting, "When I'm rich, they'll forgive me." That line burned into my soul. The next day, I took that envelope straight to my lawyer. He read every line, every note, every date. Then he looked at me and said, "Mrs. Johnson, this changes everything." We filed a motion to reopen the case, not out of spite, but because truth deserved a voice too. And when a hearing came, I stood there again, same courtroom, same judge, but this time, God stood with me. Vanessa came in wearing sunglasses, head high, her husband right beside her. The man looked powerful, the kind of man who thinks the world bends to his will. He held her hand like she was a trophy. The judge asked me to speak first. I handed over the envelope. "Your Honor," I said, "I'm not here to fight for revenge. But the truth has been buried too long, and I won't let it die under silence." The judge opened the photos. She read the note. Then she looked at Vanessa. "Mrs. Williams, is this your handwriting?" Vanessa's lips trembled. She tried to speak, but no sound came. Her husband leaned over, whispering angrily in her ear, but she brushed his hand away. Her face crumbled, not from fear, but from the weight of guilt finally catching up. Then Henry stood up from the back of the courtroom. He introduced himself and told the whole story, the deal, the threats, the promises. He told them how she'd been told to disappear if she wanted a new life, how she'd cut off her family to impress a man who didn't even respect her. The courtroom went silent. Vanessa burst into tears. Not the kind that look pretty, but the deep, shaking kind that come from a broken heart. The judge sighed. "Mrs. Williams," she said softly, "you owe this court and your mother an explanation." Vanessa looked at me, really looked for the first time since she came back. Her mascara ran down her cheeks as she whispered, "I was ashamed, Mama. I thought I could start over. I thought if I became someone else, the past would stay buried. But every time I looked in the mirror, I saw them, the babies I left behind, and you." Her voice cracked, and she fell to her knees right there in court. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I'm so sorry." Her husband got up, furious. He shouted that it was all lies, that I had made this up to embarrass her. But the judge banged her gavel, so hard the sound echoed through the room. "Enough," she said. "This court has heard the truth. And it is clear who acted out of love and who acted out of fear." The court officially cleared my name, not just in papers, in truth. The report called me the primary caregiver and guardian by moral and practical right. I didn't care about titles. All I wanted was peace. Vanessa was ordered to undergo counseling before any further contact. Her husband left her within a month. Pride had built their house, but shame tore it down faster than fire. She came to my house one evening, months later.
No makeup. No jewelry.
Just tears. She stood at the same gate she once stormed through with police. But this time she said softly, "Can I come in, Mama?" I nodded and opened the gate. When she stepped inside, the children ran out. For a moment, none of them moved, just 9 hearts trying to remember how to beat together again. Then little Rose, bless her tender soul, walked forward first. She took her mother's hand and said, "Mommy, it's okay now." And just like that, the wall between us fell. Vanessa cried into my shoulder for what felt like forever. She said she didn't deserve forgiveness. And I told her, forgiveness ain't about who deserves it, baby. It's about who needs it. Later that night, when the children were asleep, she sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same one where she once fed her first child. She said, "Mama, how did you do it? How did you raise them all? How did you not give up on me?" I smiled tiredly, because when you left, I remembered the girl you used to be, the one who braided my hair and promised to make me proud. And I knew she was still somewhere in there waiting to come home. She started crying again, but this time they were clean tears, the kind that wash instead of burn. I reached for her hand and said, "Vanessa, the world will forget what you did, but your children won't. So spend the rest of your life showing them the woman you're trying to become, not the one you used to be." The next morning, she made breakfast for everyone for the first time in 12 years. It wasn't perfect. The eggs were burnt, the toast too dry. But nobody cared, because it wasn't about food, it was about presence. When I looked around that table, I realized something. Sometimes, healing doesn't come like sunshine. It comes like dawn, slow, quiet, one light at a time. And that was the beginning of forgiveness. Not the end of pain, but the start of peace. I used to think forgiveness was a door you opened once and walked through forever. But it's not like that. Forgiveness is a road, long and uneven, full of potholes you don't see until your ankle twists again. Still, we kept walking. Vanessa started coming by in mornings.
No makeup. No perfume.
Just a small notebook and a shaky kind of courage. She'd sit at the kitchen table and ask for a list. School runs, market needs, who liked what for lunch. The first week, she burned the stew twice and forgot to salt the rice. The second week, she got the timing right. By the third week, the house had a new rhythm, not perfect, not quick, but honest. The children didn't rush to her. Love doesn't sprint after years of silence. It tiptoes. Maya kept her distance, polite and careful, a girl who had learned not to expect too much. Caleb watched like a border guard, measuring everything she said for weakness. Little Rose clung to me for a while, then began slipping her drawings into Vanessa's bag when she wasn't looking. Hearts, stick figure families, smiles with too many teeth. Children know how to build bridges out of crayons. Vanessa started counseling like the court ordered, and kept going when the papers no longer required it. She came home some evenings with eyes swollen from crying, but she didn't hide it. She sat with me on the porch, hands wrapped around a warm cup, and told the truth out loud without collapsing. I learned something then. Shame grows in silence. It shrinks when you name it and stare back. A few times, we argued. Old scars itch when the weather changes. Once she said, "If you had pushed me harder when I was young, maybe I wouldn't have run after those men." I felt heat rise in me, the kind that remembers every sacrifice. I pushed, I told her. I pushed and I prayed and I begged. But a heart that's hungry will crawl under any fence for crumbs that look like cake. She nodded. We let the silence cool the room. Then we started again, slower. Word traveled through the neighborhood quicker than smoke. The same people who whispered at the courthouse now waved at our gate like they'd always believed in us. I didn't hold it against them. People understand a finished testimony better than a messy middle. And ours had been messy for a long time. We planned small, not grand. Family meeting on Sundays after church. One rule: nobody interrupts, nobody yells, and honesty is not a weapon. The children went first. Maya said, "I'm scared you'll leave again." Vanessa answered, "I'm scared I'm not enough to fix what I broke." They looked at each other a long time, then sat closer. Caleb said, "You missed my first football match." Vanessa said, "I watched the video so many times I know your jersey number by heart." He didn't smile, but his shoulders softened. Little Rose climbed into Vanessa's lap and whispered, "If you forget me again, I'll come find you." Vanessa pressed her face into Rose's hair and said, "You won't have to." Not all 9 spoke that first week. Some took a month. Some took longer. But one by one, their voices came like birds back to a tree that had survived a storm. I kept my own promise, too. I didn't poison the well. When the children asked me hard questions, where was she? Why didn't she call? I told them the truth without turning it into a knife. She was lost, I said. People can be alive and still be lost. But she's choosing to be found now. Let's help her stay found. The law called me guardian. The children called me grandma again, sometimes mama, by accident when the house felt especially soft. We worked out a schedule with paper and patience. Vanessa took weekday evenings, homework, dish duty, bedtime prayers. I held the mornings, breakfast, socks that never match, hair plaited with coconut oil and gentle hands. Saturdays we folded laundry in a circle and told stories. Sundays we ate slow. One evening after dinner, Vanessa asked if she could do a family thing, just us. She brought out a shoebox and set it on the table. Inside were letters addressed to each child, dated across the empty years. Not perfect, not regular, but there. Some were written on napkins, one on the back of a hotel receipt, a few on paper soft with folding. She read parts aloud. I don't know how to return without breaking you. I keep seeing your baby teeth in my dreams. I put on a loud life to drown out the quiet truth of you. Tears found us one by one. Even Caleb's lip trembled as he traced the loops of his name in her handwriting. We began to heal in public too. The judge invited us back, not for a case, but for closure. She'd heard the counselor's progress report, seen the school records improve, watched truancy melt into routine. In that small courtroom with the creaky chairs and the tired flags, Vanessa stood and said, I accused my mother of kidnapping. The truth is she rescued us from a ship I set on fire. She turned to me. I'm sorry, she said, voice steady. I don't ask to rewrite the past. I ask to help write the future. Clapping isn't allowed in court, but even paper knows when mercy enters a room. You could feel it, the kind of quiet that blesses. Life gave us little graduations after that. Maya finished secondary school and got a scholarship from a women's foundation. At the ceremony, they asked her who inspired her. She looked at me, then at Vanessa and said, the two women who taught me that love is work. We cried like fools and took pictures so many times the sun turned jealous. Caleb started a small shoe cleaning business outside the barbershop and pressed his first profits into Vanessa's palm. For your fuel, he said. She pressed them back into his. For your future, she answered. They stood a second too long, like a new bridge testing its own strength. Little Rose sang a solo in church, a song she wrote herself about a house with many doors and a table with enough chairs. Her voice wasn't big, but it was true. People came to shake our hands afterward. Your family is strong, they said. I smiled. Strong is another word for mended. Not everything became easy. There were days the past dragged its feet through our living room, leaving muddy prints. Vanessa would come late, and the old fear would flare in Maya's eyes. Caleb would raise his voice at something small, and then apologize twice as hard. We learned to call timeouts before the old storm gathered. We learned to return to the table even when our pride told us to slam doors. One night, I found Vanessa on the porch, head in her hands. I keep thinking about the woman I tried to be, she said. The one with the pearls and the smile that didn't reach her eyes. Sometimes I miss how simple the life felt. I wrapped a shawl around her shoulders. Lies feel simple because they skip the truth's work. But see this house? This noise? These shoes everywhere? This is the work. And it's worth it. She leaned into me like she was small again. I stroked her hair and remembered the girl who used to braid mine. We sat in that gentle quiet, not the kind that hides, the kind that holds. Eventually, we did a brave thing. We went back to the neighbors who had watched our worst day and invited them to our best ordinary afternoon. Plastic chairs in the yard. Jollof rice in big pans. Children laughing under a sky that finally trusted us again. We didn't make a speech. We just lived where they could see. Sometimes the most powerful apology is a consistent life. On a Wednesday that smelled like rain, Vanessa asked if we could visit the judge together. We brought a simple thank you card and a picture of all of us on the front steps. Crooked smiles, squinting eyes, a family standing close. The judge looked at the photo a long time. Then she said, "The law can place children. Only love can plant them." I tucked her words into my heart like a blessing. Months later, a letter came with a new decision. Not a fight, not a trial or recognition. Shared custody, formally and finally. My name and Vanessa's on the same line, not as opponents, but as keepers. I set the paper on the mantel, not for pride, but so the children could see with their own eyes what perseverance signs in ink. We kept walking the road after that. School fees. dentist visits, cough syrup at 2 a.m., a dance performance where the music cut off and the girls kept moving anyway, a thunderstorm that took our power for 2 days and turned us into a campfire of stories and candlelight. On the anniversary of the day she accused me, we chose something different. We made it the day we honor truth. Vanessa baked a cake with too much vanilla. We wrote notes to each other and read them out loud.
No defenses. No disguises.
Just gratitude with both hands open. Mine said, "Daughter, I carried your children when you could not. Now you carry them with me. The load is lighter and the road is kinder." Hers said, "Mama, you loved me past my worst day. I promise to love you beyond your tired days." When the children went to bed that night, we washed dishes shoulder to shoulder. Water ran warm. Our hands moved in quiet agreement. She said, "Do you ever wish we could go back?" I shook my head.
No.
I wish we could go forward better. She smiled. Then let's. I think about legacy now. People talk like it's a house or a business card. To me, legacy is simpler. 9 children who know that love tells the truth, apologizes without a microphone, and keeps showing up. A daughter who learned that reputation is a glass mirror and character is the window you open for air. A grandmother who discovered that being right is smaller than being faithful. Some nights, when the house is finally quiet, I walk past their doors and listen. Soft snores, whispers about tomorrow, the creak of a bed settling into its own comfort. I touch each doorframe like a prayer, then stand under the sky and say the same thing I said in the police station, only calmer now. I didn't steal anybody's children. I just refuse to let them be lost. If you ask me what love is after all this time, I'll tell you plain. Love is not the soft thing people sing about. Love is a pair of steady hands, a chair pulled closer, a truth spoken gently, a mistake owned fully, a door kept open, a table with room for one more. Love is the long road and the grace to keep walking. And if you ask me what I learned from my daughter, I'll say this. A lost person can still learn the map. A broken person can still carry the light. A proud person can still kneel and stand up new. We are not who we were on the day she came with the police. We are who we decided to be on the day we stayed together. That is my testimony. Not perfect. True.
And that is enough. That's my story, family.
It wasn't easy to tell, but truth never is. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just gives your heart a place to rest. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose midnight it might turn into morning. Until next time, this is Folktale Princess saying, keep your heart kind, your prayers steady, and your love louder than your pain. See you in the next story.